All right, it's recording. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second ever YouTube video during COVID that I've made. I am Blair Ward. If you don't know me, now you do. I write articles about relationships and also I have a background in communication and health psychology. And I am bringing one of my favorite people on the whole entire planet onto the show right now, Dominic Bilotti, who's my best friend and also was a co-worker. We've been co-workers, friends, just lots of things through time. So anyway, I'm happy to have him on the show, and he's going to talk about his area of expertise today. So, Dom, welcome. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself for those that don't know you?
Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm from California originally. So grew up in San Francisco Bay Area, went to school with Blair in San Diego. And
Good times.
great times. I moved to Arizona, so I actually work for an investment firm called Vanguard. Small little firm, may have heard of it.
No big deal.
So,
if anyone doesn't know, it's one of the most reputable investment firms. Actually, probably is the most reputable investment firm in the world.
Very, very true. So to Blair's point, so I have been working for Vanguard for 4 years now. So a lot of the work that I do is in the general finance, investment field, but also economics too. Talk about a ton of different things, but we'll cover some of those things today. And fun fact, I am a dual citizen. So I'm Swiss as well and have Swiss citizenship. So
yep, he can speak another language.
I can speak German.
And he's single, ladies. Put that out there. He is a smart, good-looking guy. He's in Phoenix now, and who knows how much longer he'll be there. Who knows what the future will hold for you soon after this COVID thing. So I want to start with a few questions for you. Thank you so much for being here, by the way. It's not like we don't talk every day anyway, but
this is just a formality at this point. So
yeah. So the first question for you is, so yeah, you talked about how you work at Vanguard and you know a lot about finance, investment, and the economy and stuff, but what drew you to this? How did you get to the point where you are now?
Sure. So it's funny, I was a business management major when I was in college, and I wanted to go into business leadership for the longest time, but had a couple conversations with a few people, including my mom, about learning Moms Matter, a specific skill. So there were a lot of things I was doing outside the classroom, as Blair knows, because we did a lot of those things together when it came to leadership. That probably translated a lot to a business management, probably a minor, maybe even a major, if you will, when it comes to real life scenarios. And so because of that, I decided to actually change my major to finance to actually have a specific skill in the business field, as well as, having the management experience outside the classroom. So I switched over to finance, was very interesting. Just, from my background, wanted to learn about the better use of money personally. And then just kind of love for it grew over time. And as we were graduating, I actually thought that I would be working in a different field. I thought I'd be using a lot of the skills that I learned in the sports sector. I kind of realized that one of the only ways to get into that sector was to sell tickets, and it wasn't something I wanted to do. I wanted to be more strategic from a business management standpoint as opposed to, a ticket sales standpoint. And so I decided then to kind of continue the career trajectory that my major was going to give me and go into finance, specifically investments. And so that's when I made a decision to have a few phone calls with some folks at Vanguard that I knew and parlayed that into a role and haven't looked back since.
That's amazing. And you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with a career in the area that you're in because you learn so much and it's so applicable to any industry. And for those of you watching, I don't know who watches this. I get views. I don't know who the views are, but for whoever's watching this video, when So Dom and I met when we were involved in Greek life on campus and also leadership. And then we were both leaders in those specific areas. And then we ran a campaign together and were voted by the student body into office. I was CEO and Dom was CFO, along with our other really good friends, Tyler Aguilar and Andrea Bird, and then Leo Creo. Shout out to our friend Leo. I'm actually wearing Haircraft Co. in my hair and my eyebrows right now, and I got a compliment on my Instagram story for my eyebrows. And so Leo owns a company called Haircraft Co. And if anyone needs hair stuff, you should check him out. I follow both Dom and I follow him on Instagram. I had to give him that shout out. But anyway, I was CEO and Dom was CFO at the time. And I remember just like, personally, I'm someone with a communication BA and then a MSc in health psychology. So I love science and statistics and data and all of that, and that's where my background is. But when it comes to anything like finance and numbers, personal finance, that's never been my strong suit. And you have to, like when you're running, the organization we were running was $26.8 million. And that's where a lot of leaders of companies, especially people like CEOs, they have this visionary conceptual idea of where the company should go, but then they do have a hard time when it comes down to figuring out how exactly they should run it. And so you need to surround yourself with the right people to make sure that you're making the right decisions when it comes down to the bottom line, because the budget is really where all of the power is in terms of where the organization's going to go and the future of it. And so there's just so many days. I even have videos where I would be holding a piece of paper or I would have a question and I would just beeline into Dom's office, shut the door and just be like, explain. And he would sit me down. Do you remember this, Dom?
Of course.
He would sit me down in a chair and he would have a whiteboard up in his office and he would walk me through whatever the concept was, even if it wasn't finance, like just any concept that was more analytical and less conceptual. And I swear the way you thought has wired my brain to be so much more detail oriented and concise and analytical. And when I started out the beginning of the year, I took that I took that thing that told you how much like conceptual, social, and analytical you are. What is that quiz?
I can't remember.
Well, at the end of the year, I was like half of my pie chart was analytical and then half of it was conceptual, and there was like no social anymore in the chart because I felt like you trained my brain and you like inspired my brain to think more about things that I hadn't thought of before. And so anyway, that's a great intro into the fact that you always do that and you're always challenging me. And so I thought for my second guest on this YouTube channel, why not have you on here? Because I think the advice that you can give us will be really beneficial to a lot of people too, because you have a way of taking complex ideas that you study and then turning them into something that's sort of kindergarten, not like kindergarten explanations for people like me and the layperson that doesn't understand the smallest thing about finance. So, okay, can we what topic do we even hit on first? Like, where do you want to dive into first?
Well, why don't we talk a little bit about just, everyone's a little scared right now, a little nervous with everything going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people want to know what is happening and how do I feel about it based off of where I'm working and all these different things, right? And so maybe a good place to start is like just taking a 50,000 foot view of what is going on right now in the world.
Yes, please go for it.
Okay. So, and again, this is not just things that I have come up with myself, but research that other people do, and this is taken from a bunch of different sources, including my company and things like that. But, obviously we're going through a tough time right now, and the economy is definitely taking a hit. There, a lot of folks have lost their jobs. Specific sectors probably hit worse than others. But I think that we are definitely seeing an uptick in productivity in other countries that already went through this issue, which
Mm.
gives us hope that we can start to recover from these things. And so, for
Like the
example,
United Kingdom, is that a good point? Because they're a little bit ahead of us.
a little bit, but I would say more so Japan was one, South
Mm.
Korea was one, Italy is actually one at this point. France is another one at this point.
Really?
Where they're
Wow.
starting to let folks go out of the house. They're starting to open up certain shops. Obviously, they're taking the necessary precautions, but there is economic activity that's starting to spur up. China's another one. China, we may not reliably believe everything that they're telling us, but there are things that we do know because of satellite imaging. We know that there's traffic on the road again. We know that there's pollution again because the factories are up and running and there's manufacturing. And so that means that we have something to look forward to in the United States in the coming months when it comes to reopening our economy, getting people back to work, getting your jobs back, and then also maybe not feeling as insecure about the job that you're in right now and what that looks like. I think if you work in tech, to be honest, you are really in a good spot because tech, has done very, very well. And a lot of people need more tech right now. I would say be cautious too about changing jobs right now in this environment because we probably don't see the economy getting all the way back to full strength like it was before until sometime next year. And,
Really?
yep. And so because of that, I think that job security is probably the number one asset to have right now. And so jumping from one company to another, think really long and hard about that because that may not be the safest route to go right now, just because we are not fully there. And the only time we will be fully there is when all the states are up and running again. And
What advice do you have for people? I know quite a few people that have lost their jobs. Do you have any advice for them? I mean, try to find another job, but
sure. No, it's a good question. I think that one of the big things is it depends obviously where you are in your life, right? So if you lost a job and you want to get another job in the same industry you were in before,
Hmm.
one of the biggest things is keeping an open line of communication with people that are in that industry right now, right? Researching companies that are in that industry and seeing how well that they're doing, right? And so when I think about that, if you, let's say, worked in hospitality, right, and you work for Hilton, well, I would be always plugged into what Hilton is doing, like how is the company doing, and if you need to ask some friends that work in different industries about what some of the things mean, that's fine. But, are they laying off more people? Are they making any money? Is there any revenue coming in? Is Marriott doing better? Because when things swing back in the other direction, Hilton, if it's not positioned well, may not be rehiring people. And so you want to be ahead of the curve when some of those things open up. And so you may want to think about actually applying to a company that somehow weathered the storm a little better, maybe like a Marriott. And that's across all industries, is you want to be plugged into all the other companies and see how well they're weathering the storm, because they will be the ones to invest first in new employees after this is done.
Okay. Yeah, I always say treat finding a job like it's your job. So make your 9 to 5 looking for a job. People come to me saying, I've lost my job. Actually, quite a few have said, I've lost my job. I don't know what to do. And I've been in a position where I haven't had a job as well. And it's just not having a place to live or a job is one of the most terrifying experiences for anyone to have. And not having that dependable flow of income is, I empathize with that feeling. It's so scary, especially I can't even imagine if I had a family to support or something like that. But for people our age that are watching, I always say, look, like hunker down, get rid of all of your subscriptions, save your money, and then wake up in the morning. And my grandpa always told me great advice. He said, I applied to 200 jobs before I got my first part-time job as a manager at a radio station. And that actually ended up he ended up owning a bunch of different radio stations and stuff. But what he meant by that is that how hungry are you? How much work are you going to put into finding work? And so wake up and spend your 9 to 5 on the days where you're unemployed firing off resumes. And not only that, but from someone that worked in HR, it's super important to go on LinkedIn, reach out to your resources, make connections. And now more than ever, people who at least were in HR, I was in HR, I know that I would be 12 times more willing to help people and get on the phone with them and try to connect them and help them find a spot within our company, because I would have the extra time on my hands. I could like be in my pajamas and take that extra phone call. So some people just shoot in that one resume and they're like, oh, I applied to one job today. Like, how many jobs? It's like, no. You have to apply to like 10 jobs that day. You have to reach out to 10 people on LinkedIn, and you have to really go hard if you're going to do that kind of thing. And that sort of leads me into, you're really big on connecting with people. And you've mentioned that a lot about your emphasis with like during this time, reaching out to as many people as possible. Can you touch on that a bit?
Yeah, and that's actually a perfect segue because I had a conversation. So I've had a lot of conversations during the pandemic, specifically with people that I may not even know that well, to be honest with you. But one of the biggest tools that we have at our disposal is our network, right? And you may think to yourself, but I don't necessarily have a network or don't feel like I have a huge network outside of my own company or the company that I had. But first of all, you do have LinkedIn. Okay. I mean, that's more of a professional network. But to be honest with you, there's a lot of people that are either going through the same thing, or they know people that are going through the same thing, or they know where to possibly find new jobs from your own Instagram followers or folks that you are following. And so one thing, and this is just more of like a pet project that I started to do, was I looked at my Instagram followers and I looked at who do I see on here that are doing things that I'm interested in hearing about, right? Like just piquing my interest. Like they look like they're driven, they're really crushing their jobs, and I'm interested in what they're doing. And I shot them a cold message. I may not have talked to these people for 3-4 years. And I shot them a cold message. Hey, can we get on the horn sometime next week? And can we talk for half an hour to an hour? I'm really interested in what you're working on, right? And it's very harmless, right? I don't have a motive going in. Obviously, like I've been able to, continually, be gainfully employed through all of this, but I'm just interested. But I think going in with the curiosity just opens up the conversation for whatever. So I've had great conversations so far with people of different industries. I don't care what it is, just learning about what they do. And from that, I've had people say, I actually know someone in your industry. If you're interested in talking with them, they just started their new company, or they're looking for people. Not saying I'm going anywhere, but it's just like continual connections. And I wasn't going in with the motive. I was just going in with the curiosity, and from it became a few other connections with people in my own industry that I would have never thought of if I just shot a resume out. And I think you have to go in it with curiosity, not with a motive necessarily.
You just hit gold on that, because I love my relationships myself and connecting and networking, but I never really call it connecting or networking. And I never go in with an expectation that someone should do something for me, and I never could do something for me. And I always tried to give without expecting anything in return, because I think expectations really get a lot of us in the wrong mindset. And some people reach out wrong when it comes to networking. They'll, especially even to me, they'll be like, hey Blair, I'm looking to sell you this, or I'm looking for this job opportunity. Do you know this person? I know you're connected to A, B, and C. But they just shoot the fire. They forgot to have asked me how I'm doing, and reach in and see like how do they have any interest in what I'm up to and what's going on in my life. And I'm so much more likely to help someone that's reaching out with a genuine interest in my industry, in my area of expertise, or in my life, than just someone that shoots a resume over to me. And of course, I'm someone that is always trying to help other people, but not everyone in the world has their time in the day to like help everyone that reaches out. So what we don't understand a lot of times with networking is how important it is to just continuously reach out to people and build relationships, whether or not you think someone can benefit you. Because they can benefit, they can eventually end up, the strangest things have happened where I've kept up relationships with people and I've even questioned why. Like, I'm like, why do I still keep up this relationship with this person? And then like 2 years down the road, they end up connecting me to this person who connects me to this person who gets me in my new job or gets me in an interview with this person. And it's crazy how that works. And that's why it's important to nurture your relationships with, invest in those who invest in you and be curious. And with that being said, I wanted to quickly touch on this challenge that you've had going around for a year now called #homegrown challenge, because it's definitely something that needs to be mentioned on here. And it's just a really healthy way to connect with people in your past. And it hits on exactly what we're talking about right now, why it's important to keep up on relationships. So can you touch on what that challenge is and
Sure,
how you
sure.
get involved?
Yeah, of course. So this is a little different, right, than what I was just talking about. What I was just talking about is, building a network with anyone, no matter where they live, right? So
Mhm.
that would be, some type of virtual connection, a phone call, whatever it is, cold reaching out to somebody. This is a little different and something that sprung up sometime last year because of a conversation I had with another friend of mine. And one of the things that he had done, as well as a book that I read specifically just about how divided we are as a country and how the towns that we grew up in and our neighborhoods are so fractured and they're not the same. There's more fences being built than bridges, I guess you could say, proverbially, right? And
Mhm.
so, I looked at that and I thought to myself, I had such a great childhood,
Mhm.
right? I had a strong community. Like, I had friends of my parents. I had friends who had parents that would drive me to baseball games. They would drive me to school. They would, have me over for dinner, whatever it may be. They would allow us to break things in their house because we were a 10-year-old and we didn't know what we were, how fast we were running and we were going to knock something over. Right. And so teachers through all different grade levels, coaches, whatever it may be, these people built the community and built the person that you are before you left the nest and went to college, for example.
Yeah.
And there's all these little things that happened along the way that you took for granted that you really never got a chance to go back and say thanks for. And so the challenge that I'm putting out to everyone and that I have been doing for the last a little over a year now is reaching out to those people. And sometimes I don't even tell them that I'm coming. I have knocked on doors of people that I don't even know live there anymore. And they have answered the door and say, oh my, they didn't even know who I was. There are multiple times where they go, who are you? And then I go, it's Dominic. And they go, oh my God, I haven't seen you in 8 years,
That's really special.
And it is. And every time they invite me in, we have a conversation. And, there have been tears, there have been, beers, whatever it is. Like, some of the greatest interactions that I've had in I don't know how many years have been just from doing that challenge specifically. And you wouldn't believe how thankful these people are just for you turning around and saying thanks for driving you to your baseball practice or feeding you however many times. And so
Yeah.
I challenge everyone to try to get out and do that.
That's incredible. How do we get involved with that? How do we become a part of the effort that you've
Yes.
started?
Well, some people don't like to publicly display some of these things, which is completely fine. I think that just doing it and getting involved and getting a start on it is the hardest thing to do because you probably have butterflies in your stomach. You haven't talked to these people in so long. But how to get involved? I mean, honestly, the next time you go back home for a holiday, which, cross my fingers, is going to be sometime soon, right? With everything going on, hopefully Thanksgiving, Christmas, or sometime this year, schedule time with one person that you know from your childhood or how to get a hold of,
Schedule
whether
a Zoom call now. You know what I mean?
you can do it now if you really want to. I
Mm-hmm.
love the in-person, but you can even do it now. And I think just reaching out to that one person, whether it was a coach, whether it was a teacher, whatever, have that conversation and make sure, just a normal conversation, see how they're doing. And at the end, just say thank you and describe what it is. And then you can post about it. You can use the hashtag homegrown challenge, but
Yeah.
I would implore you to do so. But if you don't feel so compelled, just try it out. It's one of the best conversations you'll have.
You're going to have to write a book, Dom, about this later on, about your experience, because I think it's an inspiring story. And this this is to come off what I'm about to say here for anyone listening. It comes off. It's not to come off in a way that sounds tooting anyone's horn. It's not to supply energy to anyone's ego or persona or whatever language you want to speak about. I'm not trying to pump anyone up. However, I am stating facts that this is a interview with a human being, two human beings actually, that Dominic was elected president of his organization that he was a part of in our university, and then also he was elected by a 35,000 student campus to be CFO. And there's something that then, of course, he was hired by Vanguard, which is one of the most reputable companies, right, for investments. And there's something to be said about that. He is a hard worker, but it's so much more than hard work. It's actually relationship building is a huge part of it, and making sure you nurture relationships and you have a genuine, authentic relationship with the people around you so important. And I think what you hit on with the challenge is even more important during this time. During COVID-19, a lot of people are feeling alone. A lot of people are really struggling. And so it's more important now than ever to reach out to people that matter to you, especially people in your past. And as someone that studies health psychology, I know that most people age 65 and up are at higher risk for experiencing things like loneliness, depression, and sometimes their only companion is their animal. Maybe their spouse has passed away or their kids are gone or whatever. And so reach out to those people. Not only could they still probably connect you with people today that will help you get into jobs if you don't have one or if you're looking for a new one, but you just never understand the power of community until you're running an election and then you need 35,000 people to vote for you. And it's just facts. And it also comes down to relationships. I write about relationships, right? And so I'm very interested in our relationship with other people, with ourselves, and also relationships with money. And so that's another big I think your relationship with other people translates into your relationship with your own personal finances. And so I want to take, the talk we've had about how well you treat other people and the amazing person that I think you are, and then translate that into like some fundamental things that some of us can do to have a better relationship with our finances. Can you give us any tips or tricks for anyone listening in terms of that?
Sure. So, and I won't belabor everyone with too many details here, but I'll try to hit on some really quick hit items that I think that people should really take into account when they're doing two things: budgeting and investing. I think right now are two really important things, especially the ages that we're at right now. So number one, you should have a budget. You should have an Excel spreadsheet that essentially adds up your income and your expenses going out, just so you know where you are every month and how much you're spending in each one of those categories. To be honest, anyone who's watching this can literally ask me for an Excel spreadsheet that already has that filled in, because I do have one. So
where can they find you? I'm going to pull you up on Instagram, but do you mind telling us where we can find you? I usually ask at the end, but is there an email?
I would say find me on Instagram and you can ask me. I don't want to put my email. There it is. That's my Instagram right there.
It's the Don Bilotti, TheDonBilotti.
Perfect. And so just go ahead and shoot me a message. I can send over that spreadsheet and you can get started budgeting away. But I think that's the most important thing, is just accounting for everything that you spend is number one. And there are a few other things that I would want to touch on. Another one is you want to try, and I know this is hard for folks that live in California, but you want to try to make your housing expenses less than 30% of your income.
What do you mean your housing expenses?
So your rent. So if you make $3,000 a month, let's say, you would want your rent to be under $1,000.
It's impossible in California.
Well, exactly. So there are
You're like, that's why I live in Phoenix.
well, well, again, so it depends where you live, right? And so if it's higher, then there are some other places that you would want to pare down, and that would be probably discretionary spending on things you don't maybe necessarily need, right? And
Yeah. Do you know a
but
book I really love?
go ahead.
A book I really love that I actually just downloaded, my friend Will, and it's just basic finance. Like if people are like me and they truly, I'm lucky because I have Dom as my best friend. So like I feel like if I ever got in a real rut, I would have someone to call. And now you do too. We're really lucky because he literally just offered to give you advice and to help you. But I like the book I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi, I think it is. It's this book. Why can't I find it's it's hard to show everyone, but it's like right there. My medical medium's there too, but it's I Will Teach You to Be Rich. There's some really basic finance stuff in there that you can read, and it's what Dom's talking about too, but he kind of goes over. It's not like you always have to cut your lattes. Tell me if you agree with this or you don't agree with this. For me personally, I cut my lattes and I bought myself a trip to Australia, which was like insane, probably 2 years ago. But it's not like you have to cut your lattes. It's more just like figure out what you want to spend on. If you want to spend on that nice apartment room or whatever that you have, like spend on that. But then, yeah, cut someplace else. Okay. For me, like I decided I wanted to live in West Hollywood. Therefore, I wear the same black turtleneck every day. It's one of those things. Like I wanted to go abroad this past year. My wardrobe went from like a whole closet down to like 4 outfits because I decided what's important. Is it my travel? Is it my education? Or is it my lattes and my clothes? And my priorities kind of just shifted. So having a mindset of abundance, but knowing where to put that, right? Is that what?
No. I would completely agree. So right now, obviously, I live in Phoenix, and my rent is a lot smaller than it would be if I lived in California. If I ever moved to California, I would probably pay a lot less when it came to a car, for example, right?
Yeah, but you wouldn't even have to because you'd probably go to a place.
Fair enough.
A car, yeah.
So there's a push and a pull to all of those different things. I think you need to obviously prioritize what is important, what isn't important. I also think that when you budget, and this is something that I do, I look out over multiple months. And so sometimes if I know I'm going to overspend this month and the next month I have already guaranteed in my mind that I'm going to underspend. Okay. So sometimes it's pushing and pulling what you want to spend that month, right? So I'm going to spend a little less on food, but I'm going to spend a little more on travel, right? And then the next month but I'm going to spend a lot on travel. I'm going to be way over my expenses this month. But next month, I'm going to pare everything back.
Yeah.
Right? So not just taking the 1 month over 1 month, because you can really stop yourself from doing things that you want to spend money on.
Yeah.
And that are good for maybe even your mental health. Like traveling is real. I love to travel, but I know that it's going to cost me a lot to travel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be more than what my income is that month or even the month after that. So I project out 4 months and I go, 2 months of a lot of spending, 2 months of no spending gets me even. And so that's another thing to think through is not just 1 month at a time, but multiple months. And go ahead, Blair. I am going to close my curtains. One second.
Go close your curtains. Yeah. And a perfect example of that is if I've picked the things that I really, really like to invest my money upon. And it's travel and health. Everything else I could care less. I don't care about a really good car. I like quality clothes, but I don't need a lot of clothes. I don't wear a lot of clothes. Like you pick the things you want to invest on. What I do, since I am a big traveler, I still travel cheap. Like I'm not someone that's probably ever going to try to fly first class or business class. I don't need to. Like there's some people that they want to prioritize that. That's not something I like to save. And my grandpa always says I'm rich because I don't spend. And I think that that's a good way to look at it. Like, don't overextend yourself, overspend on areas where you can't. And so what I would do is, before a big trip, the month before, it was oatmeal that I was eating. I wasn't going out with friends. I wasn't buying Ubers. I wasn't going to the bars and getting drinks. And there is a level of discipline that needs to be in place if you want to achieve your goals and your dreams. And it worries me that certain people still don't have anything like that in place, like a Roth IRA, saving some of their savings, and budgeting. So, right? Like, those are basic things that I feel like we could spread the message on. Hey, if you don't have A, B, C, and D, let's try to get you started.
Yeah, and we're not shaming, right? I mean, we're not shaming at all, because there are a lot of people that don't have those things, right? Like,
I was one of them.
So I was a finance
info.
Yeah, and I was a finance major, and I didn't have a budget in college until maybe my senior year, So don't even think, even the people that should know, right? Or are practicing it, right? Now I do, and now it's more rigorous, but
no one should know, right? Because this isn't stuff we're taught. Like, this is stuff we have to figure out. And that's why I'm happy we have you on, is because I don't want people to have to figure out too late when they already have like a ton of debt, like I did. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think, Blair, you and I had the conversation, and we're talking probably a little bit more about an investment, I guess you could call it, in your education, right? Mm-hmm. And it was like, do I spend all of this money to travel halfway across the world and get an education, right? Is it going to be worth the money I am taking out, right, to do this? And at the end of the day, you looked at it critically. And that's, again, when you make big financial decisions like this, you really need to look at it critically. But it was long-term, even with the investment that you're putting up. In the short term, okay, it may be a burden, but when you extrapolate it out over 10, 20, 30 years, you're going to be in a great position financially. Mm-hmm. And so, but you need to know that going in, and you need to be very committed. And you thought long and hard about it. You committed fully to it. You're even committing more to it, moving here into the future. And so
more school debt. I never see education as this is a controversial topic, but I always see it as an investment. Same with my health. And I never see it as debt. I see cars as debt. I see I see first class plane tickets as debt, but I don't see education as debt, because I think it's a lifelong investment. And a lot of people, look, you can kind of learn everything that there is to learn from a book, but you also can't. Like, researchers and teachers and people who dedicate their lives to topics teach us in school. And I think education is freedom. And so I think it's just the biggest investment people can make. But that's a tough bullet to bite. And people who don't go that route, I totally get it and support it, because it's not fun to have a car payment every month, basically.
No, it's tough. It is really tough. But I do think that, and again, it's how you're thinking about it, right? So even if you go through this process and you get these secondary degrees that you're looking to get, and let's say you don't necessarily work in the field that they're directly correlated to, those degrees might still get you a job in a different field, because they want
psychology, of course.
And they want that skill set, right? And so, but you need to think critically. Like, are you going to have that type of flexibility with that degree that you're getting, or is it going to be a one-track thing? And are you committed, right? And so, and again, these are different conversations to have, but I think that it comes back to the investment standpoint. And I think a couple plugs that I wanted to talk about there from an investment standpoint for people is that, do not be afraid to invest. Even though everyone is saying doom and gloom with everything going on right now, I think it's whether you have a 401k with the company, whether you have a Roth IRA, whether you have your own brokerage account. I think that investing right now and into the future is still a good proposition, and it will typically always be a good proposition. We always have downturns, and then they always swing back up. And I think that, continuing to invest smartly is something that we actually will need to do in order to be able to retire
Mhm.
and have money when we're older. Because, and this may be a hot take or a controversial topic, but I don't think that we will have the Social Security. I don't think that we are going to have the pensions that maybe some of our parents had or their parents had when they retired or are retiring right now. So, I think that you have to take your own financial freedom into your own hands when it comes to the future. And that is investing in now, and that is investing often in your 401k and your IRA. Quick tidbit there. If your company offers a 401k match, you match that because that's free money every
Really?
time. Every single time. If you have a 401k match with your company, you take advantage of it 100% because that is free money that they're giving you, and do not leave that on the table.
Nice. That's good to know. Thanks for that. I also like to put it this way, like, look, if you invest $200 a month, and even if it's into something really safe, or even if you just save $200 a month, and then you multiply that by 12, and then you multiply that by 10 years, then in 10 years you're going to have $24,000 saved up for you just by the $200 a month. And then if you're actually investing that into like a portfolio, that money can grow like for you. And I think that some people, here's the thing, what's your advice? So a lot of people don't invest, right? I actually started, what I started with? Yes, a 401k. And like I did basic saving, 401k. And then I actually was really blessed to have people in my family like open up bonds and stocks for me when I was like really young, but that's privilege, right? Like not a lot of people have that opportunity. So have you ever heard of Acorns?
I have.
I really like Acorns. It's this app I heard about on a podcast, and you just put like a certain amount away. And what it does is like every time you spend on a specific item. So for me, it was like lattes. They take 50 cents of that and then put it into a little thing for you. And then it saves up. And I don't know, I have like a few $1,000s just saved up in Acorns, like on the side for a rainy day. And so that's a good app for people to download and a place to start. We don't necessarily all need to go straight to like a Charles Schwab account when we're first starting out. But how do you, for people who don't invest, where we should be doing it, we should be investing in a 401k, maybe have some kind of portfolio that's diversified and pretty safe. But where do we start? Like if I'm just a beginner, where would I start?
That's a good question. So I think that when it comes to investing, the number one type of investment is a retirement investment, right? So it would be a 401k or an IRA. Usually most companies in the country offer some type of 401k option or investing option. So I would suggest that going to your company, asking them what it is, where do I find it, how do I log on, and just learning how to read it, right? How much is coming out of your paycheck? What is it even being invested in, right? So just being naturally curious, but ask, like if you don't know where to start, ask your company, ask your manager, ask the HR person at your company, how do I even access this? Where do I find this information? Because you may be investing without you even knowing it right now. Mm-hmm. And so the number one thing is retirement investing. And I think that, because again, that is the most long-term thing. Like that is where most of your investments most likely will be over an extended period of time. Blair does bring up a good point though. If you want to go outside of retirement investing and do some personal investing that's on the side, Acorns is a really good one, right? Because it allows you to invest without, it's all mental, right? It rounds up all of your purchases. It puts it away.
I love it.
It just depends like what your habits are. Like if you don't like to put away, like watch your bank account drain down $300 and go into an investment account because you're actively doing it, Acorns is a good way to invest without having to think about it. Mm-hmm. And it's also a way to force you to invest too over an extended period of time. So I think that that's a good way. And then obviously you can go the route of opening up a Schwab account or a Vanguard account and whatever it is, and get a little more sophisticated. But I think the starting points are your 401k. You got to ask your company, where do I find out where it is? How do I get into it? What's in it? And who can teach me about it? There are people at your own company that can teach you how to invest in your own 401k. because they partner with companies like Vanguard to teach you how to do it. So you have so many resources at your disposal. You probably just don't even know it because it was in that nice thick packet of things that you got when you first got hired with your company.
And you just ignore it, and they don't care if you
100%.
ignore it. Yeah.
That's right. And you don't even know what you can invest in and what you can't. And, you know, it's funny because I had a conversation with someone just last week about how to invest in their 401k. And they have had that 401k for a year and a half now. They've been with the company and they never logged in before until last week. And then we had that.
A lot of us put on our to-do list, but we don't get to. And what I would want to stress for everyone on here is the second I start a job, the first thing I like to get sorted is my finances. I don't even like, before I get my badge to the company or my parking pass, I'm trying to figure out what are my benefits, what's my budget, how am I going to put this into a budget sheet, how am I going to afford my life with all of the debt that I've accumulated myself. And it's just something that should go at the top of your to-do list, I think.
Yeah, there's 3 things I think to always keep in mind when it comes to finance. 4. Well, let's do 4 things always to keep in mind when it comes to finances.
1.
Budget.
Okay.
What is your constant budget? Are you keeping one? 2. Savings. That's not money you're investing. That is just money you have sitting in a savings or checking account. You typically, as a single person, want to have 3 months worth of expenses saved up. Okay?
3 months worth of expenses. So like 3 months worth of rent, groceries, anything in case something goes awry.
Like right now. So for the next time, right? 3 months. So budget, savings, right?
Quick question on savings. I was raised with the general rule 10% ever since I was like 12. 10% of my paycheck ever since I was 12 put in savings, never touch it. Is that what is that a good baseline? I know you're saying, or is it better to be like, look, put in whatever you can in there until you have 3 months of expenses and like then keep growing it. And then maybe 10%, 20%, whatever you can afford.
So 10% is a good rule. It's honestly however you get there, right? Like I'm not going to tell someone how to save. Like I'm not the type of person who does 10%. Mm-hmm. I do whatever I can that month based on my spending, right? Okay. 1 month it could be a ton, another month it may be a little bit, right? And I might pare it back. So it just depends. But the savings part, you get to the 3 months. I do 6 months personally, just in case. So I have 6 months of a cushion just in savings, just sitting there for a rainy day. And then once I hit that threshold, everything on top of that, I put in an investment account personally, not a 401k, just my own investment account.
With Vanguard.
Yes, exactly.
So if I don't know if I can volunteer for this, but if we have more questions, can we reach out to you with questions on this kind of thing? Sure. And then if you're not available, let's say this video starts like getting 200, 300, 600 views, and then you're just inbox is inundated with these messages. Where is the next place we should look? Go to your company first, your employer? Yeah.
I mean, honestly, so when it comes to investing, you ask your employer, and that's number 3, your 401k. So your core 4 finance things, again, budget, your savings, 401k. Okay. That's number 3, and health insurance, number 4. You don't think about that when
Don't even get me started on health insurance.
Don't think about that when it comes to investments, but it is an investment. It very much is, because it can affect all of your other savings and budget and things like that. Yeah. Having health insurance is I would vault that to the beginning of the list, because, we've all had injuries or whatever it may be. And if you don't have health insurance, it costs an astronomical amount more than you would think. So those are the core 4, again, budget, savings, 401k, health insurance. I think when it comes to the latter 2, when it comes to 401k and health insurance, you got to ask your employer, what is it? Have them break it down for you. Make sure you have coverage. Make sure, what are you investing in your 401k? What does the health insurance look like? You want to break those things down. If you want to learn, honestly, just about investing, you can ask your company and they can put you in touch with whoever does your 401k. Or you can honestly call a company like Vanguard has a 1-800 line. You can just talk to someone about investing.
Wow, I had no idea.
For no cost. It doesn't cost you. It's a toll-free number.
I'm going to call them today. Look at me rubbing my crystal, hoping I get some extra cash. Come on, Vanguard.
You can literally call them and ask them about investing, and they can teach you about mutual funds or stocks or ETFs, whatever it may be. And then, or you could call Schwab. You can call a lot of these companies have those 1-800 lines that you can just ask them about. So
that's incredible. That's a great resource. Thanks for.
So if you want to even dig in more, I would do that. But again, the core 4, budget, savings, 401k, health insurance. Yes.
So all of us today listening, write that down, get on it, get it figured out. We will be in a significantly better financial state, is what you're saying.
Correct. Yes.
And something else that I wanted to note on here is that I think attitude around money is so important as well, because so much of us have this negative, fearful attitude that we've inherited either from our parents or our family or people around us. And I had that in my life. Like I've been in financial stress. I have had thousands of dollars of debt with my Lyme disease diagnosis, which is not covered by insurance. That's a whole nother topic. But I think, and I'm about to have thousands and thousands more dollars of debt due to my education that I'm pursuing. However, I think that if you have more of a healthy relationship with your money and a positive one and one of abundance, and try to find ways to create abundance with your finances. So for me, I'm always trying to find new creative ways to maximize my dollar, to earn more money, and whether that be tutoring or editing resumes or whatever, like we can get creative about how we can put more money in our bank account. Like $1 is $1, but also to have a positive relationship with it. The more we stress about it, the more we worry about it, the less it's going to help us, and the more guilt we're going to have when we spend on things that we're supposed to enjoy, the more it's going to control our lives. And just like what I was talking with Cayenne about on my last interview when it came to food, I write about relationships because I think life is all about relationships. I think money is one of the most important relationships. Our relationship with finances and money, no one wants to talk about it, but it's truly one of the most important relationships you can have if you are going to live a happy, peaceful life. Is if you confront it, you stop putting it aside, you stop not trying to deal with it, because I have been that person, and you sit down, you put an hour out to read your books, to call the companies, to reach out to people like Dom, to call your own company and sort through those core 4 things, and you'll get started probably on a much better path. At least I know I have, and surround yourself with the right people. Right? A lot of friends, if your friends are going out partying every weekend and blowing all of their money on pizzas and Ubers and alcohol, you got to live, right? And you got to have fun, but at least try to be strategic about surrounding yourself with people who will also support you putting your money into the right things. And when I say right things, I just mean other things that you value, and make sure like every dollar bill you spend is something you value. So if you value partying, spend it on that, but then cut back from somewhere else that you don't care about as much, like supplements or protein powder or, I don't know, a gym membership, that kind of thing.
No, and I think it's a good point. And I think the last thing that I'll leave everyone with is that the money conversation is daunting, right? But it is necessary. And
important.
You gotta confront it. And there are a lot of, sure, there are negative connotations to it, but unfortunately we work in the parameters that we have now where things are expensive as they are. And so there are ways to get through it, and ignoring it is not the way to get through it. Right. And so you want to make sure that, you may never always feel secure with money, which is completely normal, but as long as you are organized, then you can overcome a lot of those stigmas when it comes to, financial freedom or money in your life. So
it's interesting, like we don't need a lot to survive. And I think COVID has shown a lot of us this I've been quarantining and I've been doing kind of a self-isolation COVID thing since I moved to Scotland a year ago. And back like then I would only leave my flat for groceries. I didn't have a car anymore. So I walked everywhere and I would go on runs and go to class. And so I cut back significantly. I was spending honestly 70 pounds a week there, which is $100 American dollars, which is insane compared to the thousands I think I would spend a week in California. And now that we're all in California, I look back and my cousin was like, I don't know how you afforded the life you did when you were in California. And I was like, well, I was always really strategic about where I put this and where I put that. I was blessed to be in a job where I made a comfortable amount, but I also accumulated quite a bit of debt when I was living it up in LA. And I think that now if you just focus on the necessities and live that baseline and then save and spend on what really matters to you, like write a list of what actually really matters to you. Is that travel? Is that health? Is that clothes? Is that your car? Is that your gym? Like what is that? Save on everything else and then just like spend on that. It doesn't matter, honestly, if you're making, because I've made like the lowest amount of paycheck you could possibly make. And if you can organize yourself to at least pay for your basic living expenses, you can still find some extra wiggle room with your money. It just depends on how disciplined I think and organized you are with it. So there's financial freedom in organization is what I'm trying to say, no matter what you make.
I completely agree. That's all I had, Blair. I appreciate the interview.
Yeah, that's all I had too. We've gone for an hour, so I really hope this helps people. I know this is stuff I definitely needed to hear at one point in my life. So thank you for sharing all of those things. Everyone, please reach out to Dom if you have any questions. I couldn't be of help because he's the expert here, and probably anything I've learned, a lot of it's from him. So thank you for being here, Dom. We really appreciate you. Thank you for being one of the best people I know. And I hope you run for president one day, because if you do, I know you'll know exactly what to do with our budget. And I have faith in you. Use this as my first official public endorsement. Dom for president.
Thank you, Blair. I appreciate it.
All right. I'm going to get off now. Bye.
Bye-bye.